you like to talk about the emergency period in India and your role during that period?
Well, I think when I was at Harvard, JP had come, and I'm talking of 1968, and hardly anybody recognized the JP. Very sad how India people forget so quickly. The man was a great freedom fighter who gave up being deputy prime minister to Jawaharlal Nehru and sacrificed his life for Sarvodaya, which is a very hard. But he made me spend about 6 months in Sarvodaya. I did, and I told him that in India nothing works without politics. Even social work, you need politics. He was angry with me for some time for suggesting that, because it means a negation of his life. But somehow in 72, when he was recovering from a heart attack, he suddenly called me to a resort near Bangalore called Tippanagudahalli. And all his colleagues were there, and he said, "You told me this in 1969. You tell these people what you told me." So I told them, and all those people pounced on me, saying, "You're immature, you're Americanized, this, that, no." He said, "No, he's right." The basic thesis was that JP continue Sarvodaya, but he must do politics without holding posts. Mahatma Gandhi did it, Lord Krishna did it. That's the kind of politics you have to do. So he said then, okay, I will enter, and that's how the JP movement started. So the JP movement suddenly caught fire. Like today, this 2G has caught fire in the country. It requires usually somebody who has an impeccable record tested over time. And this time when I come in, they know that I have many minus points, but one thing is that I am not viable. And that there's nothing against me. If there was something against me, by now there were piled cases on me and sent me to jail. With 10%, they would have added 90% and made it look 100% real. So there's this confidence when I went to court that, I'm serious about it. And that's why I've come. And the same thing with JP was a hallowed name, forgotten but hallowed name. And suddenly it all erupted. And Mrs. Gandhi became nervous. She tried to malign him, call him CIA agent, this, that, all that. But in the end, she lost the election. And that's how the emergency was declared. Basically, it was an excuse. But I decided that I would not go to jail. And I went underground. And for 6 months, it was a miserable life, basically, avoiding, you had to rely on people to put you up. You couldn't live in your own house, obviously. But because my family circumstances were such that I had enormous contacts in the bureaucracy. My father was a secretary level appointee, and my father-in-law was ICS, and I went to all the elite schools. So, I knew everybody. And so I was forewarned that something big is coming. So then on the night of June 25th, I was with JP. I had dinner with him. And I told him this is coming. He couldn't believe it. He said, "No, she would dare do it." But I went back, and next morning at 4:30, I got an anonymous phone call from the police, basically informing me by an indirect method, asking me whether Dr. Swamy is at home. So I said, "Who's this at 4:30? He said, "We are from the police and we are just trying to trace him." So I knew that it has come. So I disappeared from my house, went underground, 6 months getting adjusted to this life of running around. It was painful, but I did it. I said I was going to live in a dictatorship, so I'm going to fight it. Get caught, this is another matter. Then what happened is that JP had been taken out on parole and he was sent to Chandigarh hospital. So he sent me a message, "Why are you wasting time here? There's press censorship. You go to America." Because he had seen me in action in Harvard, because I arranged his meetings and I was a young professor, and the high respect people held me. So he said, "Go there and propagate." I said, but how would people know here? He said, well, everybody's listening only to BBC and the Voice of America. So you'll automatically get publicity. So that's how I decided to go abroad. Now the question is, nobody was in a position to help me. So I had to plan it my own. So those days, security and all didn't exist. So I went to Madras, went straight to the airport, and I wanted a ticket to Colombo. So I got a ticket at the counter. And those days you could go to Colombo without a passport. And so I flew to Colombo. And then fortunately I had an American Express card. So I bought my ticket to the United States, in London to be exact, on a credit card, and flew out. And that's how the whole Friends of India Society, which I had founded, began. So in the beginning, I had to overcome this feeling that only smugglers and thieves were in jail. And if I had not, and Harvard immediately gave me back my job. So I was of course a visiting professor now, and people believed that. If I had said I'm a member of parliament, people wouldn't have believed it. So I used that platform of Harvard. I went to all the elite places in London, like the Royal Institute of International Affairs, Chatham House, Institute of Strategic Studies, and the British elite was completely swayed because I gave logical arguments. I was a professor, so articulated, instant hit, and this is recorded in B.K. Nehru, who was that time our High Commissioner. He's recorded in his book, Nice Guys Finished Second, Last or something. Nice Guys Finished Second, some book. Natwar Singh was Deputy High Commissioner, Mrs. Gandhi's favorite, and he was trying very hard to make out that I was a criminal. I had criminal charges back home. But this Harvard sort of just completely wiped it out. Then I flew to the United States and campaigned in 23 states. And the overseas Indians, they rose. Then I found that everybody is getting arrested in India. And there's nothing going on. So people began saying that if the emergency is so unpopular, why isn't there no reaction? Like they say now also, if corruption is so, why people don't revolt? Indian people do it very silently. So I had to demonstrate some way that there are people who are still in the mood to revolt. That's how this idea came, that I should return to India, enter parliament, make a minute speech and disappear.
10th of August 1976.
Yeah, 1976, yeah. So question is how to do it. By then I had become quite prominent also. So I came up with the idea that I would buy a ticket to Bangkok. Those days you used to have hopping flights. So I bought a ticket from Pan American, which was a hopping flight. And it stopped in New Delhi before going to Bangkok. And so I was a transit passenger in Delhi. So my name doesn't come in the passenger manifest.
Okay.
So the police have no idea that I'm coming. And then I got off, I went to the transit lounge without any luggage, dressed in kurta pajama. And I had my parliament pass. So I walked the opposite way. There was only one policeman, 3 a.m. in the morning. He looked at me and I showed the pass. He saluted me. So then I went to, I took a taxi and went to a hotel and checked in. Then in a disguised voice I called my wife. I had, as a contingency always, and I still do, keep a Sardaji pagdi with me and a false beard. So I told her to come in the morning for breakfast time to the hotel with these things and a toolbox. So she said she couldn't understand why, because she was thrilled to hear my voice, because it had been almost 8-9 months. So she said she gave me the thing, and I said, you go back home, and I'll come around 7 in the evening, and I will knock on the door and say, because they had posted police outside my house.
Oh, God.
So I'll knock on the door and say, is your television out of order? And you say, yes, yes, and let me in. Now you can't believe it, and this is lack of motivation does these things. There were police playing with cards when I came. It was summer. So I entered my compound of my house, not this one, I used to live in Great Kailash, and knocked on the door, and my wife opened. I said, "Aapka television kharab hai?" She said, andar aiye. So I went, because the toolbox and the Sardaji, it looked like a typical mechanic. So I went and I stayed 5 full days in my house, and imagine the police, they were questioned, what is this lady doing with a television mechanic? Because they used to have shifts, and there was no motivation. So at the end of the 5th day, I sat in a car with my wife. We drove out. The police was taken aback when they saw me, but they didn't know what to do, because they had no instructions. That's one other problem I discovered, that the police they had to have instructions from the SP before they would do anything. So, or the IB, saying that, watch out, somebody's come here. So I drove to Parliament. When I entered Parliament, the watch and ward staff normally is required to stop you, but they recognized me. So they're taken aback. They knew that I'm wanted by law. They asked me, have you been let off? So I said, yes, 20-point program. Those days you had to sign 20-point program, you could come out. So he was puzzled. Then he started telephoning. I knew he was going to phone up the SP. But I also knew that the SP won't be in his office. He would be in a Sanjay Gandhi program in Pragati Maidan. So by the time he gets him, I would have about 20 minutes. So I went in, signed the register, walked into the house, and I timed it so well. When things have to go right, they always go right to the last second. I walked in, and just at the time he was speaking the last name of the obituary, the speaker. I got up and said, Mr. Chairman, on a point of order. Everybody shocked, looking at me, Bansi Lal, Om Mehta, all these. Mrs. Gandhi wasn't there at that time. So they all looked, and they, I think, were thinking that I was coming here to do some, violent, maybe throw a bomb or something, I don't know. And of course, the foreign press had been tipped off that I was going to do this. So, and I must say, they kept the secret. They all turned up in the press gallery. And the speaker said, no. So I said, then I'm walking out. I said, point of order, you are speaking, on the obituary. Democracy has also died. So kindly include that also in the list of, in the obituary list. So he said, no, there's no point of order. So I said, then I'm walking out. And then he said, everybody will stand for 2 minutes silence. So they lost 2 minutes standing in silence. Now, if they had presence of mind, they would have said to the watch and ward staff, arrest that man and hand him over to the police. But they were all flabbergasted, you see. They didn't know what to do. And Mrs. Gandhi took them all to task for that later. And then I came out. I sat in my car. Meantime, I had left. My wife said, go to Birla Mandir. I will come. If I've escaped, I'll come and leave the car there. And they put the key under the mat for the floor, and you take the car home. I went there. I changed into Gandhi topi and in a short pants and shirt and so on. I looked like a youth Congress thug. Sonia, Sanjay Gandhi's thugs. And those guys were really the law. And I went to railway station. By then the police had come. But they were looking for somebody in pajama kurta. And I, in fact, stopped one policeman and authoritatively said, where is this train going to Agra, Mathura? So he told me, oh, I'll take you. And he took me and put me on the... quite nervous, that's all. And then I took by train, I went to Agra, Mathura, there. I had seen the train schedule, the GT was going to come. And I took the GT to Nagpur. From Nagpur, changed train, went to Bombay. And Bombay, the RSS, which was organizing the underground, told me that this is a wild idea that you are doing. We don't want to get involved till you do it. Then we'll take care of it.
Support you.
Then we'll take care of it. So from Bombay, they took care of me. By then, the whole hell had broken loose. They threw me out of Parliament. They cooked up some charge that, I had not really come, that I had sent a dummy, all that. And then they expelled me from Parliament. And then, but then there was such a manhunt for me that everyone connected with me was put to trouble. So the RSS began to feel the heat, and they were worried that if I was arrested, what would happen to me. So they suggested I go back out again. Now question is how to go back, because I had become more prominent. So the only way I could do it is go to Nepal. But Nepal, crossing the border is dangerous. So I asked them to check with from the Nepal king, who was my student at Harvard, King Narendra, whether he put me on a cargo hold of the plane and take me out.
My goodness.
They went and consulted him. He said, Swamy is my great teacher. I'll do anything for him, but I can't do this. Because she finds out, she will invade Nepal. And she hates him, I know it. And tell him not to get arrested, because God knows what will happen to him in jail. So he said, somehow make him come here, then I'll take care of him. So ultimately I decided to cross the border. But luck would have it, Mrs. Gandhi was addressing their AICC in Guwahati. So everybody there was there, all the police. I went exactly 5 minutes before 9 p.m. when the gates closed between India and Nepal. I was in Nepali clothes, I just walked through. Nobody paid attention. There, of course, the king's people were there, and they picked me up and took me to, by flight, they took me to Kathmandu, and then the king would send me to Bangkok, from where I got a commercial flight to the United States.